Welcome to Goal Talks. On these little clips, we're going to meet some very interesting people that are going to connect sports, football particularly, and mental health and wellness. I hope you enjoy. Welcome to Goal Talks. Today we have Shaun McMahon. This man is involved in all sorts of things in the city of Montreal, specifically in radio and sport and in voice. But he's also been a proponent of goal and has done some things to help us push forward in what we try and do in community. And so today during Goal Talks, we have three quick questions for this gentleman. And Shaun, thank you for joining us.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me, Paul.
Okay, so listen, it's not too serious, but it's extremely exciting all at the same time. Football, like the rest of the world, is going through a lot of things right now. And the world, even not so much on a pandemic side, but on a social side, on the Black Lives Matter push, on the social change. There's really quite a lot of things that are happening in 2020 at this moment. And so part of the question that we have during Gold Talks is on a mental health and wellness side of things. And so we believe, and I believe, that football has the power to do quite a lot of things. My question to you right away is, can football be at the forefront of this change on racism, on conversation on mental health, on sexual orientation, on just the litany of things that are on the list of topics to discuss that are always sort of brought up during a season, a month, a day, a week, but they really should never drop out of conversation, right? They should never drop out of what needs to be discussed. Can football do that? Can football be that tool?
Yeah, I mean, I think it can be. If any sport can, I think football is the sport for it. I mean, it's probably the best conduit for it because the thing when you're trying to communicate things that are that important, whether we're talking about, race or mental health, you need to be able to, number one, reach as many people as possible. And football is such a global sport. The other thing is diversity. Football is the most, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's the most diverse sport that we have around the globe, with so many people coming from so many different walks of life and so many backgrounds that, it does seem like the most representative venue for these conversations to happen. I mean, as far as mental health and anxiety go, football is something that we can really, really turn to, I think, in times like that, because it is such a rallying type of event. And people really do get what they want out of it from that perspective. And I think absolutely football can do that.
Is football obliged to do this? Is this sport? Is this the sport that has no choice but to take up that mantle?
Oh, I have a hard time with the word obliged. And I think there's a couple of levels to that. And I'll explain. Because there's the athlete, and then there's the organization. And I think there's two types of athletes. There's those who, either of them are wrong. I just think that it has to come from an authentic place for these types of messages to be, well understood. Then they need to come from a genuine place. So obligation, I think that an organization and that a governing body of a sport, whether it's FIFA in this case or whatever or a league, the MLS, for example, and there's an obligation to make sure that the conversation is out there and that things are being talked about to give the people, your constituents, your players and employees across the league, and then by virtue of that, the fans, by extension, the opportunity to have the conversation. So I think there's an obligation to make sure the conversation comes to the fore, and then it's up to people to do what they want with it. But as long as you're talking about it, I think that's a terrific start, and football's a good spot for that.
I think so too, and I think it needs to be continuously spoken about, and that's really
Absolutely
where I'm going with that. I think we need to stop this, or at least add and connect to. It's not just a month.
No. You got to keep talking about it.
Yeah, but all the time.
All the time. It's the only way.
All the time, you've got yourself a chance of, again, change.
Absolutely. Real change will never happen if it just gets swept under the rug for another 11 months out of the year. You got to keep talking about it. And the people that are involved need to keep the message out there because the conversation is the most important part. Absolutely.
Have you ever used football to help yourself mentally, to help yourself with anxiety, to help yourself deal with things? Have you used football or sport to sort of decompress when you needed it?
That's an interesting. Wow, that's a really good question, Paul. I don't know if I've ever really thought about it quite like that before. I think subconsciously, maybe. I do know that I'm a naturally kind of anxious person, just by nature. I like to be around people. I'm not big on being alone. Um, and even now, you're seeing it. You know, we're in the context of a pandemic where sport was taken away from us, and football was taken away from us. And now that we're seeing, football, or for those around the world who are seeing football come back into their daily lives, I see how it positively impacts my mental well-being, where it feels like there's others out there, and there's a common thread that I know people are enjoying at the same time as me, and it is kind of calming. So yeah, when I really stop and think about it, football maybe has had that impact on me, without really even knowing it. Maybe that's the best part, I suppose.
Maybe that is the best part. Yeah.
Yeah.
So look, Shaun, thank you very much for joining us on Gold Talks and talking about, bringing, again, it's a very loose, light sort of conversation. We don't dive too deep into it. But we appreciate your insight on this. And that's really the point of Gold Talks, and to keep things just constantly flowing until we can get ourselves into sort of larger conversations or bigger roundtables, which is going to be part of our mandate this year, like every other year. So Shaun, thank you for joining us on Gold Talks today.
It's been a pleasure. And don't forget, if you need help, reach out. I mean, that's the most important thing. So just, there's always somebody to talk to. I just want people to remember that. Okay. Thanks, Paul.
Thank you.